This is the Road Report with Steve Milton, presented by Hercules Tire.
This is Road Report. From Regina, I'm Steve Milton. It's the Ticats' second road game of the season and the first home game for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who are floating on air at 2-0. It was a calm and uneventful flight out here from Hamilton Airport, but serenity will likely not be part of the atmosphere as we approach kickoff at Mosaic Stadium. Will this be a hostile environment for the Cats, you wonder? You might as well ask me if a tornado is windy. As everyone knows, and everyone in Hamilton would like to forget, the Riders somehow came back to beat the Ticats last Sunday night, and Sunday night here in the provincial capital will mark the fifth time in 42 years that the Roughriders and Tiger Cats have met in back-to-back home and away games without a bye week in between. And Saskatchewan has swept all of the previous four. Now, numbers are only numbers, but the Ticats really want to avoid making this a fifth time. And the best way to do that is to get off to a good start, something that will silence the crowd, at least temporarily, and make it harder for them to get back into the game. We asked Scott Milanovich how to take the Prairie crowd out of consideration.
If I knew that for sure, I'd call those plays and tell Mark to call those plays and Boudreaux to call those plays. We just try to put our best stuff out there early and have the guys prepared for what they might see, and try to get off to a good start like we did last week.
If there is something ominous about the history of back-to-backs between these two teams, maybe you can find something a little more promising in another bit of history, this one more recent. The last time the Ticats here was Bo Levi Mitchell's first game in uniform after he returned from the 6-game injury list back in October, and he returned in style. He was on a snap count, so he played only the first quarter, but by then he had piled up 129 yards in passing and thrown a touchdown as the Ticats went on to win big 38-13, and Matt Schiltz stepped in for Mitchell. Could there be anything in that for Mitchell, who's off to a very good start, averaging 340 yards per game over the first 2 weeks? Any kind of symbolism or karma he can draw upon, especially in a place where he's played so many rivalry games, usually with great success? Here's Milanovich again.
Really a question for Bo. I would hope so. Those things, good vibes last, I think, for a long time. And for whatever reason, people play well in particular places against particular teams, and teams play well against. So hopefully there's something there.
I have to confess, we had a technical issue when we were talking with the head coach, so there's no live video, but there is audio, and you know what he looks like anyways. Now, Milanovich has made only 2 changes to the roster, which faced Saskatchewan last week. Starting defensive lineman Dewayne Hendrix will miss this game with an injury he sustained against the Riders, so rookie Trevon Mason, who's 6'5" and 285 pounds, will start in the middle of the line beside Casey Sales. The Ticats will dress an extra defensive lineman in Reese Martin, the rookie from Mount Allison, and go with one less offensive lineman by sitting out Evan Johnson. Rookie Nate Dumoulin-Duguay will be the only backup to the offensive front 5, although Martin, I guess, could possibly switch sides of the ball if there's an emergency because of too many injuries. Mason, meanwhile, has been impressing the coaching staff since he arrived partway through training camp.
Yeah, we like him a lot. Great energy guy. One of those guys that you love to see every day. He's got a smile on his face. When he was 2 weeks ago, he was running scout team offensive line and actually doing a phenomenal job. Right. Guy that can move the pocket, can push the pocket, has pass rush moves. So we're excited about him getting his opportunity. We think he has a chance to be a pretty good one.
On the Riders' depth chart, they lost valuable veteran Canadian offensive lineman Philip Blake to injury during the game in Hamilton, and he's on the 6-game list. But despite a number of dings and cramps they suffered during that game, he's the only Rider coming off the roster. So, on the 2 teams, just a total of an unusually low 3 players difference, including non-starters, on the 2 teams who put on such a dramatic football show last week. That might bode well for another slice of high-value entertainment. And while there's personnel continuity over these past 7 days, there's not as much over the past 8 months. Here's an indication of what kind of turnover the Ticats have engineered this year and of the increasingly common situation league-wide in the era of mass free agency. That game was played in early October last year, and the Ticats' touchdowns were scored by Kyle Loxley, Sean Thomas Erlington, and Omar Bayless, who had 2 of them. None of these players are with the team this year. And of the most notable Hamilton defensive plays that game, only Stavros Katsantonis' interception came from a Ticat who will start on Sunday. And the Roughriders were using Mason Fine and Jake Dolegala at quarterback because Trevor Harris was hurt. And they're both no longer with the team. But Trevor Harris is back, as the Ticats so rudely found out in the second half of last week's game. The CFL's early going has been a paradise for quarterbacks, particularly veteran ones. And this one features the top two passing yardage leaders in Harris, sitting number one with 695 yards in 2 games, and Mitchell just 15 yards behind him. 6 quarterbacks are already well over 500 yards. And the CFL reports that through the first 8 games, league-wide passer ratings are at an all-time high, although there's a long way to go yet. They are 60% higher than they were through the opening 2 weeks last year. Now, in case you don't know, passing rating is fairly simple mathematics. It combines yards, TDs, completions, and interceptions per attempt. The Ticats will be counting upon Mason as one of the pressure points to make sure Harris has a little less success than he did last week. They need to get to him more quickly, force him to throw where he'd prefer not to, and cover his receivers more tightly. Mason had a handful of sacks and over 100 tackles in his 3 years at Arizona, which is in a very good high-profile league, and says he's been itching to get into his first CFL game. So bring it on.
I'm ready to play. I don't think I'm more ready. I'm ready to play.
You ready?
I feel like a gorilla in a cage, like in a zoo. Had me trapped in there too long. I'm ready to play. That's it.
He says he's had to quickly learn the geography of Canada. Until he came here, he had no idea, for instance, who the Saskatchewan Roughriders were. And he's been immersing himself in the nuances of the Canadian game. But he indicates there is nothing subtle about his playing style.
Power, man. Straight down the power. I'm trying to hit him in his face.
Right.
To make that play, you feel me? So that's how I describe it, just straight power, overpowering a man.
Another interesting stat released by the league this week is that there have been only 2 punt returns of 30 yards or longer, which is a drop of more than 60% from last year. Over the whole season last year, 50 punts were returned for 30-plus yards. Neither Milanovich nor I are quite sure what that is, why that is, because normally you expect in the early going to be when returners can take advantage of so many new players on special teams not getting familiar with their downfield tackling assignments and routes. But maybe the blockers are facing a stronger unfamiliarity. I don't know. In that realm, the Ticats obviously want to spring their returner, Lawrence Woods III. And while they did a reasonable job in containing Saskatchewan's returner, Mario Alford, last week, they'll need to remain vigilant, as he has the potential to break loose at any time. Milanovich was happy enough with the special teams work against the return in leg 1 of this home and home.
I was. We had one where we gave up a pretty long return and they had a penalty, so you ask yourself the question, and if they didn't have that penalty, would we have had them corralled? That was another one where Nick's done a great job. That one was a little bit more in the center of the field. And, so it's important against guys like that to place the ball for the guys to get, to the depth of the returner and do their jobs and not let him get started, stop his feet and make him go laterally.
So, stifle the return game, silence the crowd, make Harris's night severely uncomfortable, protect Mitchell, and get the ball to playmakers like James Butler and Tim Woods. Seems simple from where I sit. Those are the main keys, but it could come down to a whole other set of players and circumstances. We'll find out during the game, and we'll break it all down in Monday's Ticats Today. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This has been Road Report, and in Regina, I'm Steve Milton.
This has been the Road Report with Steve Milton, presented by Hercules Tire. Go to ticats.ca for more in-depth coverage of the Tiger Cats at home and on the road.